If you grew up in the 1980s, you know there were moments that made every kid stop and think, wait, you had that too? Picture this. The clatter of squeaky wheels down the school hallway meant your classroom was about to transform. One rolling TV cart, booked weeks in advance, could unite an entire grade in pure anticipation. That wasn't just your school. School kids across America share the exact same thrill. These weren't random quirks. They were rituals shaped by scarcity, culture, and a little bit of chaos. But why did every classroom, every backyard, every lunchbox feel so strangely familiar? You're about to discover the 10 unforgettable moments that bonded 80s kids everywhere. And one or two may surprise even you. Nothing sent ripple of excitement through an 80s classroom faster than the sound of a TV cart being wheeled down the hall. The squeak of those rubber wheels was a signal. Today, something different was about to happen. Teachers, usually so composed, would push the hulking cart with a kind of secret pride. One hand steadying the wood grain cabinet, the other clutching a stack of film strips or a well-worn VHS tape. If you were lucky, the cart would roll into your room and the regular lesson would vanish, replaced by the glow of a tube TV perched on top. Most schools only had one or two AV carts for an entire floor or wing, so just getting a slot meant weeks of planning. The AV club, those few kids who knew how to thread a projector or untangle the cables, suddenly became the heroes of the day. For a few glorious minutes, the clatter of chairs and the click of the power button drowned out everything else. Maybe it was a Reading Rainbow special, or a film strip about volcanoes, or a live broadcast of a space shuttle launch. No matter what played, the room felt transformed, everyone leaning forward, eyes wide, as if the TV itself was a portal to another world. The sense of rarity made it magical. Most days, the cart sat locked away in a closet, reserved for special occasions or emergencies when a substitute teacher needed a break. The anticipation built up so much that even the static at the start of a tape felt like part of the ritual. In a time before personal screens, just seeing a television outside your living room was enough to make the day unforgettable. Imagine explaining this to kids today, who have instant access to any video on a tablet or smartboard. Would they even understand why a rolling TV could spark a classroom-wide cheer? For 80s kids, it wasn't just about watching TV. It was about the thrill of the unexpected, the shared experience, and the rare taste of something out of the ordinary. That squeaky cart meant you were all in it together, waiting to see what would flicker to life on the screen. Order was a big deal in the early grades, and nothing drove that home quite like the fire drill rope. At the first blast of the alarm, the teacher would grab a thick, fraying rope, loops knotted every few feet, and announce it was time to line up. Each kid grabbed their assigned loop, some sticky with years of nervous hands, others slick from too much plastic coating. The lucky few at the front fought for the line leader spot, while the rest jockeyed for a place away from the kid who always sneezed. The rope itself had a faint, mysterious smell, part chalk dust, part gym mat, part something no one could ever quite name. This wasn't just a quirky tradition. The National Fire Protection Association recommended rope lines for kindergarten through second grade as a way to keep little kids from scattering during emergencies. Teachers became captains, anchoring one end of the rope and steering a slow-moving parade through winding hallways and out to the cold blacktop. Some kids turned it into a contest. Who could hold their loop the straightest? Who could walk without looking down? Who would get scolded bid for swinging the rope like a jump rope once the coast was clear? By the early 1990s, most schools phased out the rope in favor of color-coded arrows on the floor, citing better safety and fewer tangled limbs. But for 80s kids, the memory lingers. The scrape of the rope against your wrist, the hush that fell as everyone shuffled in single file, and the sense that for a few minutes, the whole class moved as one. Today's students might follow a path of stickers or LED lights, but they'll never know the odd comfort and slight gross out of holding that communal rope. For a generation, it was just another part of being a kid, learning to stick together, one loop at a time. Opening a lunchbox in the 1980s was never just about food. It was a daily display of pop culture loyalty, a silent contest played out across every cafeteria table. He-Man, Strawberry Shortcake, Star Wars. Each metal box was a billboard for whatever cartoon, movie, or toy line had captured your imagination that year. The real connoisseurs went for the matching thermos, its glass lining clinking gently inside, promising lukewarm soup or chocolate milk by noon. Aladdin Industries and Thermos were the big names, churning out new designs every season to keep up with the latest Saturday morning sensation. Lunchboxes weren't just for carrying sandwiches. They doubled as shields, drums, and if you were bold, a dueling weapon. At least once a week, someone would slam their tin box against a rival's, hoping for the satisfying clang that meant yours was sturdier. Parents and teachers frowned, but the practice was so common that injury reports started showing up in the news. By 1985, the Consumer Product Safety Commission was fielding complaints about chipped paint and sharp edges. The debate made its way into hearings, with manufacturers defending their products and kids everywhere quietly rooting for the metal classics to stick around. By 1987, most brands had switched to plastic, citing safety and cost. The era of the metal lunchbox faded, leaving behind a generation of adults who still remember the pride of showing off a brand new tin box on the first day of school. Imagine handing a kid today a metal lunchbox with a glass thermos and sending them off to class. Would they even know what to do with it? For ED's kids, it was more than a container. It was a badge of honor, a piece of the playground economy, and a daily reminder that what you carried said everything about who you were. Sticker trading in the early 1980s was more than a hobby. It was a full-blown underground economy. The cafeteria would buzz as kids flipped open binders stuffed with scratch and sniff treasures, each plastic sleeve holding a rainbow of scents: popcorn, bubble gum, root beer, even pizza. The rarest stickers weren't always the fanciest. Sometimes it was a misprint or a barely there scent that sent values soaring. Every school had its own legends, like the mysterious grape sticker that supposedly smelled like cheese. No one could prove it came from Trend Enterprises' factory, but just the rumor sent kids scrambling to trade 2, sometimes 3 regular stickers for a shot at the mythical misprint. Ed Lochte, founder of Trend Enterprises, never set out to create a playground stock market. But by 1982, his company was pumping out more than 100 million scratch and sniff stickers a year. Teachers handed them out for perfect spelling tests or good behavior. But by lunchtime, the real action began. Negotiations could stretch for days. A kid might offer an entire sheet of banana for one pizza, or swap a coveted chocolate scent for a superstar gold foil edition. Sticker albums became status symbols, thick with the sweet and sometimes strange smells of childhood ambition. Even the packaging became part of the ritual, with kids peeling the wrapper back slowly, hoping for a new scent or a rare design. The playground currency didn't last forever, but the memory of those deals, the whispered trades, the thrill of landing a legendary sticker still lingers. For a generation, it was the first taste of negotiation, risk, and reward, all wrapped up in a 2-inch square of scented paper. Nothing quenched summer thirst like the garden hose. In the heat of an endless afternoon, a pack of kids would sprint across the backyard, grass stains on knees, laughter echoing off fences. The hose, still warm from the sun, waited coiled by the spigot. There was always one self-appointed hose monitor, ready to crank the tap and send water sputtering out in a wild, unpredictable spray. The first sip was a rite of passage, hot, almost metallic, with a strong whiff of rubber. You'd spit, grimace, then go back for more. After a few seconds, the water ran cold and clear, tasting like freedom itself. Bottled water was a rare sight before Perrier's big push in 1988. Most parents thought nothing of letting kids drink straight from the hose, convinced that a little dirt built character. Suburban backyards in the late 70s and early 80s were built for this kind of play. Wide lawns, battered kickballs, and a hose long enough to reach every corner. No one worried about filters or BPA. The only debate was who got the first gulp and who had to wait at the end of the line, hoping the hose wouldn't go limp and cut off the flow just as your turn came. Today's kids, raised on filtered water and stainless steel bottles, might look at a sun-baked garden hose and wonder if it's even safe to touch. But for a generation, that rubbery taste is a badge of honor, a sensory flash that brings back the feeling of sticky hands, sunburned shoulders, and the wild joy of being let loose outside until dusk. Imagine trying to explain to a kid today why hose water always tasted better after a game of tag. Some things you just had to be there to understand. Every driveway in the 1980s doubled as a racetrack, and the big wheel was king of the course. Kids would line up at the top of the concrete, sneakers braced against plastic pedals, ready to launch themselves down the slope with all the confidence of a Daytona driver. The signature rumble of hard plastic wheels on asphalt was the soundtrack of summer, punctuated by the occasional squeal when a turn went wide. Marks and Playskool churned out millions of these low-slung trikes between 1978 and 1986, each one a ticket to neighborhood glory. Friends organized races, setting up chalk lines and makeshift pit stops, while parents watched from porches, trusting that tough plastic could handle any wipeout. But not every ride ended with a victory lap. In April 1985, the Consumer Product Safety Commission recalled over 800,000 big wheels after reports of front wheels cracking mid-race. 18 kids ended up with real injuries, bruises, cuts, even a broken arm. The recall made headlines, but it didn't slow the obsession. Manufacturers quickly reinforced the wheels with stronger, ribbed plastic and added new safety labels, promising parents a safer ride by Christmas that year. The faith in plastic toys held steady, and by the next summer, big wheels were back in driveways everywhere, tougher than ever. Meanwhile, rainy days turned living rooms into spin zones. The sit and spin, with its simple spinning disc, offered a different kind of thrill, pure dizziness. Kids would whirl themselves silly, challenging friends to see who could last the longest without toppling over. No recall ever slowed those spins, just a warning label and maybe a word of caution from a parent. For 80s kids, these toys were more than plastic. They were a test of courage, balance, and the unwritten rules of childhood speed. Nighttime in the 1980s often meant lying in bed, with the ceiling transformed into a galaxy of your own making. With a pack of Glo Worm, the Dark Star kits, ordered straight from the 1984 Sears Wish Book or picked up at the local mall, kids became amateur astronomers, peeling and sticking constellations wherever their imaginations led. Some followed the patterns from the back of the box, recreating Orion or the Big Dipper in careful lines. Others went rogue, scattering stars in wild, impossible shapes that only made sense in the dark. The first few minutes after lights out were pure magic. Each star soaked up the day's sunlight, then glowed a soft green, just bright enough to spark stories and secret wishes. Space fever was everywhere. Funda patches on backpacks, Challenger posters on classroom walls, and Star Wars toys on every shelf. The bedroom ceiling became the launch pad, a private observatory where the universe felt close enough to touch. No one worried about perfect placement or symmetry. The adhesive was never quite strong enough, so a shooting star might peel off and land on a pillow by morning. Yet, years later, faded outlines often lingered, stubborn reminders of childhood nights spent mapping the cosmos. Even now, some adults discover a lone, dusty star stuck to drywall when repainting a childhood room. For a generation raised on dreams of space, those glowing stickers were more than decoration. They were nightly invitations to drift beyond the ordinary, one bedroom constellation at a time. The art of the perfect mixtape started with a finger hovering over the record button, waiting for the exact moment your favorite song hit the radio. Every 80s teen knew the stakes. One slip, and the DJ's voice would crash in, forever stamped onto your masterpiece. More than 70% of teens recorded their own cassettes, fighting to capture a clean intro before the FM host jumped in with station ID or weather updates. The Sony Walkman turned these tapes into portable treasure, traded between friends or slipped to a crush as a musical love letter. Radio stations and record labels pushed back, launching the Home Taping is Killing Music campaign and flooding the airwaves with warnings. But for kids, the thrill was in the chase, timing, patience, and a touch of rebellion, all pressed onto a Maxell or TDK tape, ready for the next big listen. Nothing shattered a quiet Saturday morning like the Kool-Aid Man bursting through a wall, bellowing that legendary, "Oh yeah!" For 80s kids, those commercials were pure spectacle. Bricks flying, kids cheering, and a 6-foot pitcher of Red Punch stealing the show. The magic came from gray advertising's wild ideas and a foam suit that turned every set into a sauna. Actors inside the costume, like Brock Lesnar, not the wrestler, sweated through 90-degree days, barely able to see their mark before smashing through breakaway drywall. According to a 1983 Adweek feature, it took a full crew just to reset the wall for each take. The catchphrase stuck, and so did the image. By the early 80s, Kool-Aid Man ranked among the most recognized ad mascots in America. Today's kids have CGI mascots, but nothing beats the thrill of a giant talking pitcher crashing into your living room. Every night in the 1980s, a familiar ritual signaled the end of the day. The screen faded to an American flag. The national anthem played. And then, silence. For a few seconds, the world felt paused, until the screen filled with a blizzard of static. That hiss, known as snow, meant the broadcast day was officially over. Across the country, station engineers flipped the master switch, shutting down transmitters and leaving living rooms bathed in ghostly light. Kids protested, hoping for one last cartoon. But the rules were clear. Bedtime had arrived. By the late 1980s, cable and 24-hour channels began to erase this nightly sign-off. But for a generation, the static was a communal cue that tomorrow would bring a fresh start. In the 1980s, more than 70% of teens made mixtapes from the radio, and metal lunchboxes were phased out by 1987 after safety reviews. These facts show just how universal and tangible these childhood moments really were. From drinking hose water because bottled water was not yet the norm, to watching the TV cart roll in for a rare classroom movie, each experience was shaped by the era's technology, safety rules, and marketing trends. Some questions remain, like why certain playground fads took off in one region but not another, or which scents became legendary in sticker trades. But the evidence is clear. These were not isolated quirks. They were nationwide rituals, documented in catalogs, commercials, and school policies. Today, many of these moments are gone, replaced by streaming, digital classrooms, and new safety standards. Yet the records prove that being an 80s kid meant sharing a set of odd yet unforgettable habits. That is what made this generation's childhood truly unique.